There's a rumor going around. If you like this video and subscribe, you will be the next vessel for Shukaku the Ikibi. Hi guys, this is the next part of What if Itachi Uchiha was reincarnated in the world of fairy tale. I hope you enjoy. In the far distant inside a deep dark cave, away from the Tartaro's hideout, walked the petite little dragon slayer, Wendy and her trusted companion Carla. Things had turned into a whole mess with this face business. Having found the control room and the former chairman dead, and the location of face which they had to destroy. Little Wendy was supposed to go with Lucy, but they were separated by 2 of the 9 demon gates. Wendy was very nervous, and frightened while walking in the darkness of the cave. The only plus side, was that the air here was so fresh that it eased her somewhat. In the darkness of the cave, she saw various different shapes of rocks, some that resembled people. Although that only made her think of that massacre aftermath she witnessed on her last job with Itachi, Ezel and Mirajane. The memory had been stuck in her mind for days, she's had trouble sleeping because of it. Her body shivered at the thought, as the memory of the smell came back to her. Her tiny petite little body quivered even more, to which she tightened her hold a little on Carla, who she was holding in her arms. Carla gave a light pat on Wendy's arm with her paw, to which Wendy widened her eyes and looked down on her companion. "It's okay, I'm here for you, Wendy." Carla gave the poor little girl a little smile, to which Wendy was brought out from the thought, smiled back, and went to focus on the task at hand. To stop face and take down Tartaros. They walked towards a part of the cave where they saw light, and when they entered, they saw a giant white pillar with a face at the end. That's face," Wendy uttered in slight awe at the pillar. "The hell is this? Damn you, Kyoka, you said I would have a feast, and all I get is this damn shrimp of a girl." A giant being jumped from the ceiling, his skin gray and his mere body covered in spikes. He had 4 arms and tentacles for legs. He was one of the 9 demon gates, Ezel. Tartaros. Wendy jumped back a little, staring down this demon. "Then you are the one who activated face." "That's right, I was told that someone was bound to come and stop face from activating, and was told that I could devour them. So imagine my disappointment when it turns out to be a little girl." Ezel growled in frustration, and was about to take it out on Wendy. Slamming his fist into the spot where Wendy once stood, and the little dragon slayer jumped back to avoid the strike. "Get back here." Regardless of the comments Ezel made, he was still going to eat Wendy. "We should get away, you are no match for that guy on your own." Carla was worried for the safety of her dearest best friend, and Wendy felt the same. "There is nowhere to run, I must fight." "No, Wendy." Elemental resistance rise. Deus Corona. Physical abilities rise. Deus Equus. Wendy's body let out a green glow as she enhanced her own abilities. Eel arms, eel armor, eel vernier, enchant. An enchanter, huh? Ezel's interest grew slightly. Sky dragon. Roar. Wendy unleashed a mighty breath attack of a wild tornado blasting into Ezel. Yet, Ezel just blasted right through unscratched. "Is it okay to let loose against someone like you? A little runt like you?" Wendy flinched at the approaching demon, and jumped towards him with an enhanced kick covered by wind delivered to his face. Yet it didn't affect Ezel, who was smirking in amusement at Wendy's attempts. Ezel swung his arm down, sending a wave of energy towards Wendy, cutting off one of her pigtails and blasting her crashing into the face pillar. "This thing will go off in 5 minutes, and then all magic on the continent will be wiped out. Although, standing this near to it really makes me feel sick. At all this concentration of ethernano around it, I can't stand the stench of it." "Ethernano," Carla uttered while looking at the massive face pillar. "But, I will put up with it. Because once those ethernanos destroy all magic, our curses will rule this entire continent. But before that I'm going to pulverize you, and devour your flesh." Ezel glared at Wendy, to which she began trembling in fear. Images of those corpses came back into her mind, and she froze. To which Ezel showed no mercy and slapped the girl aside, sending her crashing into the stone walls, making her cough up a puddle of blood. "Wendy!" Carla shouted in terror. Ezel kept on his assault, slamming his tentacles onto her arms, pinning her down. "You might not fill me up, but I will enjoy it nonetheless." Ezel chuckled and directed his hand at Wendy, poking her frail skin on her arm with his claw. Wendy flinched in pain as it felt like she was stabbed by a needle. Ezel lifted up his claw that had a stain of Wendy's blood on it. The mere sight of that blood caused Wendy to freak out, remembering all the blood from that massacre. She was terrified. "No, I'm scared, help me, Natsu, Itachi. Someone, please help me." Wendy was brought to tears, to which Ezel ignored and tasted the blood. A little sweet, but not too bad. You will make a nice snack. Ezel laughed at Wendy, who couldn't gather up any strength from her fear. Let go of Wendy. Carla flew up to Ezel's face and tried to scratch him with her claws. Take this, and this, you foul monster. Carla, no, fly away. Wendy cried out, seeing Ezel reaching out to grab Carla while looking at her with a questioning gaze. What is this, cat? Are you edible? Ezel raised Carla towards his jaw. No, please. Wendy was trembling in fear, her fear over those rotten smelly corpses, and her fear over losing her dearest best friend. Only one thing was for certain, she knew what scared her more. Wendy, the air, Carla uttered as she was almost in Ezel's mouth. The air, this fresh air surrounded by Ethernano. Maybe I can, Wendy thought, her gaze focused on Carla and the thought of Ezel slamming his jaw into Carla, splattering her blood everywhere. Wendy widened her eyes at the thought, imagining the blood of Carla staining her face. I won't let you, Wendy uttered and started inhaling her breath, eating up the air. Wendy let out a war cry as she unleashed a massive surge of wind that blasted Ezel upwards, crashing into the ceiling, forcing him to let go of Carla. I won't let the smell of those dead people overcome me. And I absolutely. Wendy's hair turned pink and rose up, her eyes turned red and small wings grew on her back. Won't let you harm Carla. Wendy got over her one fear, as one fear she had that was greater was witnessing her friends die before her. Wendy had unlocked Dragon Force. She wasted no time and slammed her tiny fist into Ezel, sending him crashing into the stone wall of the cave, making a large hole. What the? Ezel had no time to recover, as Wendy continued her assault, throwing a barrage set of punches into the confused-looking Ethereous demon. Wendy flew over him with her leg raised, and drop-kicked Ezel at the top of his spiky head, shattering some of the spikes as well. The hell is this? Ezel growled and threw a punch at Wendy, yet she caught his fist with ease. I am possible. Arg. Wendy let out a war cry and threw a punch back at Ezel, sending him flying back. Carla could only stare in awe at Wendy's new power, having power enough to go up against someone like a demon of the Book of Zeref. I control this space. Wendy vanished at blinding speed before Ezel, and moved around the room, delivering blow after blow. You damn brat, Ezel roared and tried to hit Wendy, to which she vanished again and appeared behind him, slamming him into the ground. While this fight occurred, Carla crawled towards the face, going to shut it down somehow, as it was mere 4 minutes until it detonated. Don't think I am done, little girl. Ezel let out a glow and transformed, growing pieces of armor around his body, and his arms turned to actual blades. I will cut through your wind, Ezel declared as Wendy gathered wind after wind around Ezel, who cut through each one, but was met by another and another. Wendy then focused on gathering strength into her tiny fist and slammed her fist towards the unexpected Ezel. And no, wait, Ezel uttered as Wendy unleashed a mighty wave of wind. The wind pierced through Ezel's body like a spear, and pushed through the face pillar, blowing it up and reducing it to rubble. And Ezel was reduced to nothing as his body was torn to shreds. Thinking they had done it, Wendy smiled only to see the countdown still going, which restored her terror. She then looked over at Carla, who was working on something. Having seen how to destroy Face, in a future vision. With this, Face will be destroyed, once I push this. Carla looked at a circle that contained the Royal Army's symbol. Although, I won't be able to escape the blast. It will blow up, once I push this button. Carla, and no, it has to be another way. Wendy uttered as her Dragon Force form vanished from having used up her power. There isn't, I don't know how far the blast reached, so get out of here, as far away as you can. Carla uttered, her entire being trembling as the feeling of sadness from having to say goodbye to a good friend was overwhelming. No, I refuse, I won't leave you here. Wendy argued and wobbled over next to Carla, hugging her tightly. We've always been together, always. No matter what you say, I won't leave you. Never. Wendy cried, to which Carla started crying as well. You stupid girl, please, just. Carla was stopped from speaking further as Wendy tightened her hug. I won't, no matter what. Besides, I can't move, I won't be able to get that far away. I'm not going anywhere, Wendy said, to which Carla realized this was the end for them. This is where our adventure ends, but it was fun, being with you, Carla. Wendy and Carla both shed tears and looked at the button. We have to press that. Yes, let's do it together, Wendy said with a smile, having accepted their fate. We always did everything together after all. Carla also smiled as she brought her paw together with Wendy, and pushed the button. "We'll be friends together in the next life, right? That goes without saying." Carla cried as they both shed tears and smiled at each other, as the light in the rumbling increased. Although then in a split second, as the fire of the explosion approached, a figure arrived out of thin air and grabbed a hold of both of them under one arm. The blast approached them as they vanished into thin air with the new figure. A little further away from the explosion, appeared Dorenbolt, holding onto the unconscious Wendy and Carla under his right arm. He flinched in pain, as his left arm had suffered major burns, some of his flesh was even burnt away. He looked at his smoking bloody, charcoaled arm, and then towards the two fairy tale wizards. "Looks like I made it, just in time. To think, these two runts would be the heroes that stopped Face." Dorenbolt gained a smile, ignoring the pain as he gently put Wendy and Carla down. It all seemed to be over, or was it? In the ruins of Hell's Core, where Tartaros once held the pride of immortality, was now in ruins. No member of Tartaros would be able to revive themselves anymore, and they wouldn't be able to transform anyone into a demonic creature again. In the center of Hell's Core stood Itachi, in stage 3 of his black markings. Having grown a cloak of darkness, his lower body completely covered in a mass of darkness with demonic talons, his arms covered in darkness with demonic claws. Dark lines going over his eyes, and a pair of black horns growing out from his forehead. But what one of the 9 demon gates, Sela was focused on was the black E mark at the center of Itachi's chest. "It's him, it's really him." Sela spoke with a gleeful smile. Her fellow demon gate Jackal stared at Sela in confusion. "The heck are you talking about?" Jackal growled as the cut on his chest left by Itachi was closed up by darkness that resembled Itachi's. "Who is he? Don't you recognize him, Jackal? That cold chilling cool stare, that power of darkness, the ruthlessness, the power, and those beautiful red eyes." Sela let out a satisfied sigh as she stared at Itachi, although then her attention diverted to the girl he held in his arms, and her expression changed. "Who is that girl?" Sela's tone got back to normal, her expression darkened as she released her own pressure of power. "I don't think I like her that much." Mira then slowly began opening her eyes and looked at Itachi. Itachi," Mira uttered a little weakly, still under the effects of the drug. She then managed to stand and looked at Itachi with wide eyes of shock, seeing his body almost completely covered in darkness. "It's okay, I'm in control," Itachi said with an emotionless expression that matched his tone of voice, as he held her closer to him, making Mira blush faintly, and she then looked down at herself seeing she was naked. "Oh my," Mira uttered and used magic to dress herself up in a yellow Chinese dress. And Sela's glare at her intensified much to Mira's confusion. Even though they were enemies, why did that woman seem to hate her so much? "Hey, what's the deal? How come he's got demonic powers?" Jackal questioned in confusion. He then remembered what Sela told him earlier. Was he supposed to recognize this guy? He took a closer look, and raised his brow as that emotionless stare did ring a bell in his head. "Who are you?" Jackal questioned, knowing he had seen this guy before. The answer is simple. He is a demon of the books of Zeref like us. A new yet familiar voice was heard as Kisame, Sasori and Kakuzu walked in. He is the very first Aetherius, the legendary demon, and said to be the strongest demon Zeref ever created. Simply known as Aetherius, or E for short, the demon of extinction. Sasori explained with a smug smirk. Itachi averted his attention to his former Akatsuki comrades. This guy, is E?" Jackal questioned with wide eyes of shock as his body was trembling. And he then realized, he knew he had seen that guy from somewhere. He looked like a grown-up version of the E he knew, though that would make sense considering how much time has passed since he last saw him. Lord Zeref's first and strongest demon, with maybe the exception of the demon of war, Madara, Sela uttered, looking amazed at seeing Itachi or E for the first time in a very long time, and feeling his sensation of power once again. "Itachi, listen up now. How about you join us, and together we will look for Zeref. I'm sure you have some questions for him about all this. Also, hand that woman over, she will be a valuable servant." "What with that demonic power of hers?" Sasori smirked while pointing at the stunned-looking Mirajane. "Not to mention the bounty she has on her head," Kakuzu said, which caused Mira to widen her eyes. Although her tension was eased as Itachi held her closer with his right arm around her waist. Yet something about this didn't feel right with her. That look in Itachi's eye wasn't normal even for him. It just looked so empty, just like it did when he faced those dragons. She also remembered what happened after the dragons, and how Itachi spoke of his fears to her. It only made her feel even more worried for him now. The tension in the room grew, as the 4 former members of the Akatsuki faced each other after all this time. It became harder to breathe for the bystanders with all these powerful auras being released in this single room. After all this time, I didn't allow myself to get captured just to fight amongst former comrades. So, let me make 2 things perfectly clear. 1, I am not joining your dark guild. And 2, I'm not letting either one of you get close to my Mirajane. Itachi declared with a frown as he stepped in front of Mira in a defensive manner, and Mira blushed a little from Itachi calling her, my Mirajane. Then in an instant, the trio of former Akatsuki members vanished, leaving only 3 dust clouds behind, and appeared all around Itachi. Kakuzu was on his side with an iron blade formed around his right hand. Kisame on his left with the Samahata raised, and Sasori hovering above him with his wing blades dripped with poison sticking out from his back, and a wire stabbed into the ground. Itachi remained motionless and calm. You don't get to make demands to us. Sasori smirked wickedly and directed his palms with a fire sphere forming from a small cannon right over Itachi's head. Know your place, Uchiha, Kakuzu said and swung his iron blade towards Itachi's waist. Time to settle the score, Itachi-san. Kisame smirked and swung his Samahata down on Itachi. Then, in an instant Itachi slammed his arms forward, as the darkness around his arms grabbed onto the trio and slammed them into the ground, with the black aura of the darkness pinning them down to the ground. I can't move, Sasori uttered as the ground beneath him formed into a crater as the pressure was too much. He's able to take us all on at once. Kakuzu was able to stand on his knees for a bit, until the pressure became too much and he fell to the ground as well, making a second crater. Kisame was also on his knees, and he raised his right arm to form a hand seal. How interesting, Itachi-san. Compared to last time you are almost like a completely different person, Kisame smirked. Itachi narrowed his gaze at his former comrade and teammate and clenched his fist, increasing the pressure making Kisame fall to the ground as well, making a third crater. AAARRRGGGHHHHHHH. The trio screamed as the pressure increased upon them even more while Itachi looked down upon them with an emotionless stare as their pain didn't seem to bother him in the slightest. Is this a joke? Those 3 are even stronger than Mard Gear, yet he is able to take them all down at once, Jackal uttered with his body trembling in fear as he backed up and tripped over his own tail while cowering in fear. Is this really happening? Lami uttered, to which Jackal widened his eyes, considering the last time he saw her she was missing a head. He then looked over to the headless Lami corpse, and it was still there. While Sela clenched her right hand over her chest where her heartbeats increased. Isama, Sela smiled with wicked glee, her cheeks in a faint shade of blushing red. Itachi took a few steps closer to his pinned down former comrades. Good, now that we have established where we stand, I assume you will surrender, Itachi said and knelt down and looked down upon his former Akatsuki comrades. The darkness pinning them down vanished and went back to Itachi's arms. Kisame managed to pick himself back up while trembling a little, then he started laughing. This is great, you are indeed the Itachi-san I remember. My partner and friend that I respect so much. Kisame smirked while glaring at Itachi. Which makes this all the more better. Kisame grabbed onto his Samahata and tightened his grip on the sword. What was that you said earlier? You allowed yourself to get captured? Sasori questioned with a small growl as he and Kakuzu also picked themselves up and both sent the Uchiha a small glare. That's right, I figured this would be the best course of action to locate your base, and take you all down. It seems it's going to be much easier than I thought, Itachi said as he looked into his demonic claws, feeling this sensation of power within him. Don't think, you are the only one, Kakuzu uttered as his tentacles popped out from his body and a mass of darkness grew around him, as well as a demonic aura. That has demonic powers, Sasori uttered also with a demonic aura flaring around him along with a mass of darkness growing around him. This will be fun, Kisame smirked as a demonic aura flared around him as well, and he started to grow black markings. Massive tentacles stuck out from Kakuzu's body, and formed 2 massive demonic wings on his back with 10 different masks on them, and his hands turned into demonic claws. He grew black horns from his forehead with the right horn being bigger than the other. Even though you are the legendary E, you are only in your partially transformed state, Kakuzu stated, to which Itachi picked up on, implying there was still more of this power within him. Sasori grew 4 extra black demonic arms from his sides, and a black scorpion-like tail from his lower back, and black horns from his forehead sticking out sideways. He also had black flame-like markings covering his right upper body, with a line going over his right eye that was black with his pupil red with a black slit. While we can enter our complete transformed states, and even though you are stronger than one of us, even you can't take on all of us at once in these forms. Kisami's body started to change to the point where he looked like a shark, with black markings on his fins, and spreading across his back, his fangs looking bigger and sharper, and his hands looking like black demonic claws. That is true, which is why Kisame smirked and flinched his claws, and then suddenly a wave of water crashed into Kakuzu sending him skidding back, and Kisame jumped over to Itachi's side. "What do you think you are doing?" Kakuzu growled at the shark man in outrage. "Obviously, I'm siding with Itachi-san. He and I are comrades after all," Kisame said, causing Itachi to look at him with a raised brow. "You see, I found out what kind of a human I was after I died. Just like Itachi-san said I would, and well, I am loyal to those I respect, I honor the truth. Itachi-san is also my best friend. Besides, I want to settle the score with him in a one-on-one battle, is that okay with you?" "Itachi-san," Kisame looked at his best friend from the corner of his eye. "Very well, once we take care of Tartaros." Itachi, even for Kisame, remained emotionless, only acknowledging the shark man with a single glance, before turning to face Kakuzu and Sasori. "But first, let's take these two down. You still remember the combo formations, right?" Itachi asked, and Kisame looked over at Itachi, knowing Itachi was experiencing the side effects of his powers. "Hey, of course I remember." Kisame grinned, ignoring that matter for now, and went to focus on the battle ahead. "Good, we will begin with Formation A." "Formation A, huh? Very well." Kisame formed water beneath him and charged forward like a shark in the ocean towards Kakuzu and Sasori. Kakuzu prepared to stop the incoming shark man, but then over Kisame jumped up Itachi, his arms raised in an X formation, and out from his claws formed dark mass projectiles that resembled shurikens. Itachi threw the projectiles towards Kakuzu. Although then the ground rose up, having taken the shape of a stone golem, as Sasori had chakra threads coming from his fingertips. The golem went in a defensive manner in front of Kakuzu, and took the projectiles head-on, although the projectiles blasted right through the golem as it shattered into pieces. The projectiles kept flying towards Kakuzu, who was about to react when Kisame suddenly appeared behind him and slammed him in the back, sending the bounty hunter towards the projectiles. Kakuzu quickly formed a hand seal, hardening his skin, yet the projectiles stabbed through his arms and legs. Kisame charged at Sasori, who quickly summoned forth an army of puppets to his aid. Sasori formed a hand seal as the puppets all charged up various jutsu element attacks, and magic attacks coming from lacrimas within the puppets, such as gravity magic, maker magic, requip, earth manipulation. Kisame then brought out the executioner's blade and the samahata from within his body and cut down various of the puppets. He then threw the executioner's blade towards Sasori, while forming a hand seal. Water style. 1,000 water shark bombs. From all the water the recovery tanks contained formed an armada of 1,000 sharks, and then a red spectral warrior threw multiple magatama projectiles that with the water sharks blasted into the puppet army. Mira watched the display of teamwork between Itachi and Kisame in awe. They were both so in sync that it was incredible. Mira was so distracted that she didn't notice the dark shadowy figure that was Sela come up behind her. Sela wrapped her arms around Mira's neck, ready to snap it. "I don't know why, but my curse doesn't seem to be working on you. No matter, I will just use my demonic strength to snap you like a twig." Sela covered Mira's mouth, making sure she wouldn't make a noise. How dares a mere vile lowly human get so close to Isama? "He is the property of Lord Zeref, a member of Tartaros. He is mine," Sela declared, although was prevented from killing Mira by getting elbowed in the gut. Sela vomited out a small puddle of blood, and looked down to see that Mira's arm looked like a demonic claw. "You're wrong. He is Itachi Uchiha of Fairy Tail." Mira let out a glow around her body and entered her Satan soul form. "What? She has demonic power?" Sela picked herself up and recovered from Mira's attack, as she glared daggers at Mira, who looked down upon her. "You little wench." Sela charged towards Mira, although then a wave of darkness pierced her gut. Mira and Sela both looked shocked as they looked at the source, seeing Itachi having extended one of the long claws on his demonic hand of darkness. He hadn't even glanced in their direction and was only focusing on Sasori and Kakuzu. Isama, Sela uttered as Itachi didn't even grant her a single glance of acknowledgement. He just pulled his arm back, pulling the claw of darkness out from Sela, who fell to the ground. Itachi, was all Mira could utter as she looked stunned at this sudden change of behavior. Isama, Sela glanced up at Itachi's form and a smile spread across her face. Such brutality, so truly demonic, I love it, ah. This feeling, of having the power of Isama inside me, is truly magnificent. Sela let out a little moan, and stood back up, as the stab wound got healed by a speck of darkness from her body. Although, I wish you would be a bit more loving. Sela stared at Itachi with a crazed grin. Itachi still didn't bat an eye at Sela, and merely had a cold and emotionless stare focused on Sasori and Kakuzu. Sela then glanced back at Mirajane, and remembered how lovingly Itachi held her earlier. Like you did with her, Sela levitated a few books around her and sent them flying at intense force towards Mira. Mira, having gotten over the scene Sela caused earlier, blocked the incoming books. Itachi, just focus on your enemies, I got her, Mira declared, to which Itachi gave her a single glance. Seeing the determination in Mira's eyes, he knew she could handle herself. Very well, Itachi replied as he turned back to face Sasori and Kakuzu. Kisame and Itachi both charged towards Sasori and Kakuzu. Kakuzu leapt upwards while Sasori sent one of his puppets flying up with Kakuzu. Kakuzu had one of the masks on his tentacle wings open its mouth, and Sasori's puppet let out a glow from its lacrima implanted in its chest. Around Kisame and Itachi formed a gravity dome, pushing them down a bit. Itachi looked like the pressure didn't even affect him as his body barely bent down. He looked up and spitted out a gigantic blazing ball of fire upwards, towards Kakuzu and Sasori's puppet, who created the gravity dome. Kakuzu widened his eyes as the fireball exploded right into him and the puppet was obliterated, and Kakuzu was engulfed by the fire. The fireball kept going up, destroying the ceiling in the end, and melting the wall from the tremendous heat. The black burning smoke cleared, revealing Kakuzu with his skin hardened, yet he still suffered burn marks. I didn't even see him wave the hand sign. No, did he even wave a hand sign? Kakuzu thought while his body was flinching in pain. While in the background, Mira and Sela went head to head. Sela bombarded Mira with different objects she could find around the room, while Mira avoided them, or blasted them with demonic energy blasts while advancing towards Sela. Once Mira was right up in Sela's face, she punched the demon upside her head, sending her face first into the ground. Just as Mira was about to throw another punch, Sela threw an uppercut with her fist surrounded in a darkness similar to Itachi, and what Kisame showed in their previous battle. Why do you have those marks? These marks are a symbol of one being a demon of the Book of Zeref. All of us have it to increase our physical abilities. Yet only very few of us can manipulate it to such an extreme level. Those 4 over there are some that can manipulate it to extreme levels. Especially my sweet Isama, Sela declared as she and Mira grabbed each other by their hands and glared at each other, while their auras flared all around them. Although hand-to-hand combat isn't really my style, well, not in this form. Sela smirked as books flew blasting into Mira from the back, as Sela utilized her curse power macro. A human imitating a demon can never beat the real thing. From what I understand, you aren't the real thing either. Just an experiment created by Zeref using real demon DNA. Mira glared up at Sela, who now glared daggers of anger at Mira. Mind your words, girl, I will show you just how real I am. Sela's body let out a dark blue demonic aura, as she levitated broken sharp pieces of glass over Mira. Given enough force, these will pierce through your body just like a sword. Just as Sela was about to send them raining down, Mira got up right into her face, and headbutted Sela, making her fall back. Evil explosion. Mira sent a wave of energy blasting right into Sela, sending the demon woman skidding back, while dragging up the stone floor with her. Once the wave vanished, it revealed Sela covering her face with her arms to ease the impact of the attack. She slowly brought her arms down and sent a cold glare at Mira. Not bad, for a human. Sela acknowledged. I can see why Isama might have some interest in you, which is why you must die. What is the source of this obsession you have with Itachi anyway? Mira got curious and asked, considering she never see her in Itachi's memories. She had an idea why that was, and she thinks Itachi knows as well. She was still afraid to find out if it was true or not. Isn't it obvious? I'm a demon, we are naturally attracted to power. And Isama is the full package, powerful, ruthless, cruel, and wicked. He is everything a demon girl could want. As this is probably your first time witnessing his greatness, let me tell you, you haven't seen nothing yet. Sela thought back during the ancient times, of the first years of her life. Several years ago, when we were created by Zeref. As children, some of us were lucky enough to witness Isama's power in person. Sela explained as she thought back of an image of a young version of herself, Kyoka, Mardgear and Jackal. Me and Jackal here were one of the lucky ones. Sela looked over at Jackal, who was staring in awe and trembling in fear at the battle between Itachi, Kisame, Kakuzu and Sasori. Sela thought back on a scene, where a slight injured child version of herself jumped back while standing before her was a dragon. The dragon, however, was cut in half in a mere instant as a figure of a young Itachi cloaked in darkness flew by, with his right arm being a blade of darkness. His power and brutality was truly a magnificent sight to behold. Everywhere he went, death and destruction followed. He was feared by all humans, and even feared by dragons. The young Sela looked up at Itachi, or rather in awe of his power and strength. Seeing that emotionless, empty look in his eyes, more dragons then showed up, and suddenly the young Itachi's hair turned white, his skin turned paler, and his eyes flickered with a purple glow, and his power increased as he seemed to be entering his complete transformed state. To which the four young ethereous demons stared in glee and awe. We used to look up to him, and I in particular realized, Isama is the only man worthy of me. Just like Lady Kyoka is the only woman worthy of me. Sela came back to reality after her trip down memory lane, and glared at Mira. And yet, he is with you, that is unforgivable. I will kill you, and claim my rightful place as Isama's mate. Sela declared with a crazed grin, to which Mira frowned, and flew at Sela with her fist raised. Mira threw the punch, yet Sela caught it by grabbing his wrist. I won't let you corrupt him any further with your human emotions. Sela powered up as her aura intensified. I order thy, release my limiter. What the? Mira widened her eyes as Sela's appearance began to change. Her skin turning darker, her horns growing larger, her hair looking wider. And her upper clothing disappearing, revealing her bare chest, that was only covered by some black markings. That spread from around her neck to her stomach and hips. Her legs looked more like stilts that gradually widened up to her hips, and her feet were replaced by blades. I shall kill you, and rest of your feeble guild. That fool Elfman shall pay for making a fool of me in front of Kyoka. Perhaps I shall order him to murder his own little sister, instead of destroying your guild hall. Sela declared, to which Mira's face darkened. What was that? You made my little brother destroy our guild hall, and you are threatening to make him kill Lizana. Mira grew a smirk and her body lit up in a powerful aura, as she entered her Satan Soul Seatree form. Bad move, bitch. Mira growled, and they both flew at each other and clashed their fists. Back to the other fight in the room, Kakuzu jumped back away from Itachi and Kisame. Kakuzu then spread his demonic wings and all the masks directed at Itachi and Kisame. Sasori joined in on the assault, summoning forth 3 puppets each with a lacrima in their chest. The puppets both charged up massive giant blasts of dark energy. Perish. Kakuzu and Sasori then blasted out their big assault of energy that combined into a single wave. Kisame. Formation D, Itachi instructed, to which Kisame nodded, and they both formed a hand seal, as the wave blasted right into them, and through the wall behind them. And from the outside of the hideout one could see a beam blasting out from the castle on the floating cube stretching far out through the sky. The members of Tartaros and Mirajane both covered their eyes as the smoke cleared, revealing a massive hole in the wall, with Itachi and Kisame standing in front of the hole, their bodies bruised up, and stained with their own blood from various cuts on their bodies. Oh no, Mira uttered, and Sela also gasped, as Kakuzu and Sasori smirked triumphantly. Although their smirks vanished when suddenly Kisame turned into a puddle of water, and Itachi's body exploded in a murder of crows. Clones. Sasori widened his eyes as the crows started to surround them, and out from the crows came multiple dark projectiles flying towards Kakuzu and Sasori. Kakuzu hardened his skin and covered his body with his wings to lessen the damage, while Sasori raised his arms as his chakra threads that were attached to the ground raised the ground around him to form a dome of stone and earth shielding him, and using a magic lacrima planted within his own body, to enhance the earth dome around him. Sasori narrowed his gaze as he heard the projectiles hitting the dome, and despite the enhancement, some projectiles got through, and Sasori used the black scorpion tail to deflect them once they got through. And from the ground behind Sasori, came water up from the dirt. Sasori's ear twitched. And out from the puddle of water came Kisame with a gigantic axe with also a gigantic hammer connected to the axe with a chain in his claws. As Kisame was about to surprise attack Sasori by slamming the axe into him, Sasori's scorpion tail stabbed into the shark man's gut. "Think I didn't notice the water?" Sasori looked stoic as he didn't even bother turning around and just pushed the scorpion tail further into Kisame's gut. "The tail contains poison. Consider yourself lucky that you are a demon now, otherwise you would have been dead within a few minutes. Although, I will make sure to give you an injury beyond your healing abilities," Sasori said as the tail kept pushing through Kisame's expanding the wound as more blood dripped out. Kisame grinned, showing off his massive shark-like fangs. "So what?" Kisame slammed the axe into the scorpion tail, and then raised the hammer, and slammed it into the axe, and the scorpion tail got cut in two. Sasori widened his eyes, and then Kisame dropped the axe as out from his wrist came out a needle-like sword. Kisame then threw the sword at Sasori as it stabbed through the puppet master's shoulder, and stabbed into the stone wall of the dome behind him. "Bet you didn't see that one coming. Did you?" Kisame smirked and pulled his arm back, as the almost invisible string attached to the needle blade pulled the needle blade back and stabbed through Sasori's other shoulder, and the needle sword landed back into Kisame's hand. "You damn fish," Sasori growled while sending a small glare of death at Kisame. Kisame brought his left hand to his chest and pulled out a massive sword with a scroll of paper bombs attached to it. Kisame then pulled the strings with his right hand, sending Sasori flying towards him. "Batter up." Kisame swung the sword in a baseball-like fashion and slammed it into Sasori, and the paper bombs exploded. "Actually, I'm a human. Or in this case, a demon." Kisame smirked as Sasori was sent flying crashing out from the dome. And out there Itachi was waiting for him. Sasori widened his eyes in surprise as Itachi slammed his demonic claw into Sasori's gut, blasting him with a wave of darkness. Sasori landed right next to Kakuzu, who was pinned down with various black spears made from Itachi's darkness stabbed around his body, purposely missing all his hearts. "Are you two ready to listen now?" Itachi looked at them with a stoic, emotionless face. Kisame then crawled out from the dome, looking a little pale from the injury, as the other part of the tail was still stuck within his body. Kisame pushed the tail out, leaving it squirming on the ground. Blood spilled out from Kisame's gut as he started to look slightly weaker, and his darkness slowly began healing his wound. Itachi walked over to him and placed his right demonic claw over the wound, using his own darkness to speed up the healing process, and then the wound closed up. "Thank you, Itachi-san." Kisame panted, still feeling the pain from the injury despite it being gone. "Next time try and not be careless," Itachi warned as Sasori picked himself up and pulled out the black spears stabbed all around Kakuzu's body using his chakra threads, as well as regrowing his scorpion tail of darkness. The duo charged up behind Itachi, Sasori swinging his scorpion tail of darkness at the Uchiha. Sasori glared at Itachi with dead, emotionless-like eyes, eyes of an emotionless puppet. Kakuzu snarled at Itachi while his 10 hearts masks directed at the Uchiha charging up blasts of energy. "Die," the duo thought simultaneously. Now then, Itachi slowly turned around as a dark red aura flared around him, forming the red spectral shield of the Yata mirror. Sasori and Kakuzu's attacks hit the shield dead center. Both widened their eyes knowing what was coming as the shield let out a bright light before their attacks bounced right off it and back at them. Sasori and Kakuzu leapt up in the air to avoid the blast, but widened their eyes as two massive spectral hands slammed into them, pinning them to the ground. Itachi's Susanoo had grown flesh and legs and roared at the two pinned down former Akatsuki members, while tightening its grip on them, making them unable to move. "Are you two ready to listen?" Itachi asked again, looking down at them with a cold, emotionless stare. Kakuzu and Sasori both growled as they struggled to break free, however they both stopped struggling as Kisame directed the Samahata and the executioner blade to their necks. "I would listen to him if I were you." Kisame snickered at seeing Sasori and Kakuzu in this situation. "What the hell do you want?" Kakuzu snarled in a venomous-like tone as he glared at Itachi. "First, I want you to answer this question. Why are you bothering working with Tartaros?" "Why? Because we are demons of the Book of Zeref now." Kakuzu was interrupted from speaking further as the grip of the Susanoo tightened even more. "Arg," Kakuzu growled in pain, feeling his body getting crushed. "Don't give me such a meaningless reason. Kisame is also a demon of the Book of Zeref, yet he decided not to stay loyal to Tartaros. Besides, I don't see any Zeref, just a bunch of old toys he probably got sick of." Itachi had the Susanoo loosen its grip on Kakuzu, who took a breath in and tried to recover from his injuries. Both Sasori and Kakuzu remained silent and only glared daggers at Itachi. I'm growing tired of this. Itachi narrowed his emotionless gaze at them and the Susanoo tightened its grip on them both, making them scream out in pain. Now, talk while you still can. For what reason did you stick with Tartaros? What else are we supposed to do? Sasori growled and Itachi directed his attention completely to the puppet master. We are former criminals. It's become so natural for us we don't know what else to do with our lives. This life is all we know. The life of a rouge shinobi. Why are you able to live different? Huh, tell me, why are you, a man who killed his entire family with a legal guild, hanging out with friends, going on adventures, finding love, why are you able to do so despite your past? Itachi didn't show any particular reaction. In fact, it looked like he didn't care what Sasori had to say. Simple, because I can remember a life before all that, which it seems you both have forgotten. Itachi's response made both the former Akatsuki members widen their eyes. Sasori, you used to be a renowned puppet master of the hidden sand, your reputation spread far and wide and people of other nations feared your abilities and skills. You fell down a dark path after having murdered the third case cage and fled the village. Kakuzu, you were an honorable shinobi once, well known in your village for your strength and power, and your skills as a hitman. However, when you were assigned to kill the first Hokage Hashirama Senju you failed miserably. And your village abandoned you and punished you, so you killed the elders and left living out most of your life as a bounty hunter. And now that you two have been given a brand new start at life, you are wasting it away just because you let your pasts haunt you. Kakuzu glared at Itachi with rage, veins bulging around his neck and forehead. Little punk, Kakuzu growled and as a response Itachi tightened the grip of the Susanoo around Kakuzu. How, after all you have done, how can you think you have been redeemed? Forgiven, do you think your guild will? Sasori glared at Itachi. We already have. Mira spoke up, to which Sasori widened his eyes and looked over at the she-devil who was busy holding off Sela, both gripping each other's hand trying to push the other back. Itachi has showed us everything he has done, and why, and we all accept him. When Mira said this, Sasori, Kakuzu and even Kisame looked confused. Mira managed to push Sela back and elbowed her in the chin, then did a 360 spin and slammed a sphere of dark demonic energy into Sela's gut, sending her skidding back. Yarg. Sela let out a demonic howl and instantly looked like she recovered from that last attack, and jumped back into the fight. What the hell is she talking about? Sasori questioned in confusion as the words of Mirajane created a lot of questions inside the puppet master's head. Such as, why would she accept him after what he did? It didn't make any sense to him. I will show you three as well, there is no point in keeping it a secret anyways. And frankly I couldn't care less. Itachi looked at the trio with his Mangekyo Sharingan, and showed them his entire past and about the Uchiha massacre. Once it was over, the trio of the former Akatsuki members widened their eyes, while sweating from the intensity of all those memories. Well, I will be damned, Kisame uttered, looking rather surprised at learning of this new development. Hey, guess I should have figured that out with the way you acted about the whole final battle between your brother. The shark man said while panting. He also let a chuckle escape his lips. A mission? Seriously? Kakuzu also looked shocked. Being someone who used to do his own village's dirty work, he could understand going through with a mission like that. He just couldn't believe how the supposed good-hearted village of Konoha was this corrupted. So, you were spying on the Akatsuki the whole time. Hey, what a laugh, what I wouldn't give to see how Deidara would react to this. Sasori smirked, not seeming to care about this new knowledge. He actually returned to his stoic expression once he had recovered from the quick shock of the intense memories of Itachi. Then, as you are not a true criminal, there is no way you would ever understand the likes of us. No, despite what the goal of my actions were, doesn't change the fact I had to live out the rest of my life as a wanted S-class criminal. The only difference between you and me, I choose to get over it and start anew when opportunity presented itself. And it is not too late for you three either, to try and redeem yourself for your past actions. Itachi said, to which the trio looked stunned. He wanted to help them redeem themselves. He could not be serious. And despite Itachi's words, they couldn't tell if he was telling the truth or not, as those emotionless eyes didn't tell them anything about his true intentions or motives. What makes you think we can be redeemed? Sasori decided to ask, to see if he could get any more information to find out what Itachi's intentions were. Itachi had the Susanoo grow an extra pair of arms wielding blades, and directed them at Sasori and Kakuzu. My original plan was to put that proposition out there for you. I didn't really wish to harm or kill either of you, although I would if needed. Itachi declared as he also formed a blade of darkness from his right claw, and bent down to their eye level while eyeing them with his dead emotionless-like eyes. But now honestly, I couldn't care less what you choose. I don't really feel anything towards any of you, not even hatred. So, I wouldn't mind killing you on this very spot. Hey, I see, your power of darkness has robbed you of most of your emotions, haven't they? Kisame smirked as he looked into Itachi's cold eyes that completely lacked any kind of emotion. To this, Mira widened her eyes as what she feared the most has happened. And Sela, who heard this, smiled with glee, as she blasted a wave of demonic power at the distracted Mirajane, sending her flying crashing into a wall. Meanwhile, while all this chaos went down, Jackal was actually sneaking away after seeing how Itachi and Kisame handled Sasori and Kakuzu. Lami, who for some reason was alive, shortly followed. Itachi didn't bother to respond his former partner and teammate about the ordeal on his emotional situation. Now, what's it going to be? Death or redemption? Itachi held his blade of darkness right at Sasori's throat. Sasori glared at Itachi dead in the eye, and he could finally tell. Itachi really didn't give a shit at this point. If Sasori wanted to live, he had to pick redemption. Question was, would he though? Would Kakuzu? Redemption? Sasori thought, and his eyes softened as he thought back all the way to the days before he was a criminal. Within the hidden sand village, the young aspiring puppeteer master lost his parents, went through a whole childhood of loneliness and misery. Becoming Sasori of the Red Sand, the great puppeteer master from the war. Further studying into the arts of the puppeteer, studying into ways to live forever to continue his art form. Having lost what was most important to him way too early with the death of his parents. He wanted to make something that lasted forever. In his quest to find a way to make himself into a puppet while staying alive, he infiltrated the Kazekage's forbidden scroll chamber and stole a scroll with this secret art. Leading to his confrontation with the Kazekage, trying to stop him and calling his art form an abomination. A battle ensued, and Sasori barely won. He joined the Akatsuki and continued his way into the darkness, deeper than ever before. Having killed every shred of emotion that remained gone even till his very own death. And were not regained until he was brought back as an Edo Tensei. He remembered Kankuro's words, he put his very soul and being into his creations, and that is why he beat him. Sasori smiled a little on the inside, thinking it was rather foolish. But he couldn't really say anything, as he did lose in the end. How Sasori would keep living on through his own artworks, that would be passed down from generation to generation. Sure, it seems nice, thinking about getting a second chance. Maybe teach my art form to the next generation in this world as well, but, can I really be redeemed? Sasori thought as he looked up at the young Uchiha, who might be the death of him. One thing was for sure, he didn't know what to do right now with his life, he needed time to think this through. Guess that was his answer. I do not wish to die yet, although, I'm still not sure if I can be redeemed. Sasori replied, to which Kakuzu looked in bewilderment. Was Sasori actually considering this? So, you are willing to give it a chance? Itachi asked the puppeteer master, to which Sasori thought back on his parents, his granny Chiyo, him making the mother and father puppet making them hug him to give him affection. He then thought back on the aspiring puppeteer master Kankuro. I suppose, Sasori replied. Itachi merely stared at him, looking deep into Sasori's eyes, and then the skeleton hand of the Susanoo around Sasori vanished. Now, what about you? Itachi turned to Kakuzu, who half expected Sasori to use this chance to attack Itachi. Although those hopes were shattered as Sasori didn't even move, he just looked up into the sky looking to be in deep thought. What good would it do? I am a washed-up old man, there is no use in trying to redeem myself. Just kill me and be done with it. Kakuzu sent Itachi a challenging glare, to which Itachi held the blade of the Susanoo right over one of the 10 hearts, and his blade of darkness over the other. Very well then, Itachi stabbed the blade of darkness through one of Kakuzu's hearts, making him flinch in pain. 1. Itachi stabbed the blade from the Susanoo into the next one. 2. Itachi readied for the third one, although his arm was stopped by Kisame. Now, Itachi-san. You are not thinking clearly here. Give the old man a chance to think. Kisame tried to reason with Itachi. Sasori looked at the stoic Itachi, seeing he really was serious about killing Kakuzu just now. Kakuzu, I know you are a greedy bastard and all, but I honestly thought this world was perfect for you. You could just join a guild, hunt people down, get paid, and it is legal. Not to mention if you live, you get to get back at Zeref who'd use us as nothing but pawns. Just like those geezers that punished you for failing one job. Kisame riled Kakuzu up by bringing up the harsh treatment he got from his village elders, after having failed to kill Hashirama Senju. Kakuzu gave it some thought, although he was as stubborn as always and took his sweet time deciding. Think about it, you never even liked taking orders from the Akatsuki. You just stayed with them because it was convenient for you to continue your bounty hunting business. What's different now with Tartaros? Come on, in this world you can keep earning money, and do it legally. Come on Mr. Zombie, you know what the right answer is. Kisame grinned at Kakuzu much to the bounty hunter's annoyance. Arg, fine, but I warn you, if I don't like it I will kill you. Kakuzu threatened the shark man who just gave a light chuckle. Fine by me, Kisame replied, if I ever get a warm fuzzy feeling from this, then you can kill me. Sasori said as he picked himself up, leaving Kisame and Kakuzu to wondering if that was a joke or not. Fine then, in return for me sparing your lives. You will tell me where to find the leader of Tartaros, Itachi declared, looking like he didn't really give a damn what they picked as if it was the same to him regardless. And thanks to this demonic power corrupting his mind, it was true. Hey, how come he lost his emotions? Whenever we enter our forms nothing like that happens. Kakuzu asked as this seemed peculiar to him. Let's just say Itachi-san is a special case. He is after all, a demon with much more power of darkness than we have. All that power rushing into him all at once must have been too much for him to handle. He is lucky he is still somewhat in control, Kisame replied, as he looked slightly worried for his old partner. As they all felt it, something inside Itachi was growing. The darkness was getting stronger, and the light in him grew weaker. Further in the corridor of what used to be Hell's Core, were Mira and Sela duking it out. Mira's movements were getting slower, she felt tired, and Sela continued the onslaught of attacks non-stop. This isn't looking good, it's like she isn't getting tired at all, Mira thought and took a major leap backwards while gathering her hands into a cup. Soul Extinctor. Mira gathered up a vast amount of demonic dark energy into her palms, and unleashed its mighty fury in a gigantic blast of darkness that engulfed Sela, who shrieked like the demon she was. Mira panted as it didn't look like she could keep her Cetri form up much longer, as it seemed she still hadn't fully recovered from the battle against Kisame. Then out from the smoke, that cleared away the moment Sela jumped through, Sela directed her palm at Mirajane and all she saw was an eyeball in the demon's palm. Then a blast attack blasted into Mirajane, sending her flying across the room. Arg! Mirajane grunts in pain while coughing up a splatter of blood as her back crashed against a wall. Sela then flew into her, slamming her fist covered in darkness into Mira's gut. The she-devil had used up what remained of her power, and she reverted back into her base form. Die, vermin! Sela raised her hand that was surrounded in darkness, ready to deliver the finishing blow to Mira. With this, Isama will be mine, Sela declared, and just when her claw was inches away from Mira's face, a giant sword slammed into the demon, sending her flying through a wall. Man, never seen her like that before, the figure commented, to which Mira looked up, recognizing the voice, and saw Kisame, who was back into his normal form, the man who defeated both her and Urza at the same time. You okay there, she-devil? Kisame smirked at Mirajane, who glared daggers at the shark man, obviously not trusting him. I'm glad to see you are alright. Another familiar voice reached her, and she turned to the side and saw Itachi. And to her surprise, with both Sasori and Kakuzu right behind him also back into their normal forms. Itachi was the only one still cloaked in that darkness, making him look demonic. Itachi, what's going on? Mira questioned in confusion. Had Itachi's lack of emotions caused him to somehow join up with them? No, that couldn't be it, could it? Mira was beyond worried for her boyfriend's safety, and his state of mind. Mira, with a worried gaze, looked into the black E mark on the center of Itachi's chest. She couldn't help but wonder how the others would take it, with Itachi being a demon of the books of Zeref. They have decided to give redemption a try. They are going to help us destroy Tartaros, Itachi explained as he grabbed a hold of Mirajane, holding her around her waist. Let's go, we have work to do. What was that? Sela crawled out from the rubble, and widened her eyes as she saw her beloved Isama, holding that woman Mirajane in his arms. Wench, Sela growled as she managed to see Itachi holding onto Mira, and Kisame, Sasori and Kakuzu take off into the sky. As the 4 former Akatsuki members grew wings of darkness on their backs, Sela looked up at them as they flew away into the sky, hovering over the floating cube of the Tartaros hideout. "You, vile, lowly human, I will hunt you down." Sela screamed at Mirajane as their forms vanished into the distance. Itachi could clearly see the battle going on the surface of the cube. He could see their friends struggle. They were his friends. Friends? That word kept going into question in his own mind. If they were his friends, then why didn't he feel the need to help them? Why couldn't he feel anything towards them? Itachi brushed the thoughts aside as his mission remained clear: destroy Tartaros, and find Zeref. "Everyone, can you hear me?" A voice rang in both Itachi and Myra's heads. Itachi didn't seem to react to it that much, as all he did was cast a single glance at the cube. "Warren," Mira uttered as their guild's own personal call center had linked up every member of Fairy Tail. "Mira, is that you? Good, then both you and Urza are confirmed safe. Where is Itachi? Is he with you?" Warren asked, to which Mira looked at Itachi, seeing if he would respond. Yet his face remained unreadable. "I'm here," Itachi responded in an emotionless tone. This didn't seem to alert Warren and a few others, as mostly Itachi would seem emotionless. Yet those that were closer to him could tell his tone of voice was different, it was colder. "Good, then all that remains is to find a cure for Laxus and the Thunder God tribe and take down Tartaros," Warren said, although then he went silent. "Huh, yeah sure, hang on." Wendy and Carla stopped face. The voice of Lucy reached them now and everyone erupted into cheers. Wendy and Carla did. They really have grown so much. Mira smiled a little at hearing this good news. "Can the master hear me?" Happy's voice was now heard. "Yeah," Warren replied to the little blue exceed. "We met Master Hade's soul," Happy informed, to which even Itachi looked shocked for a second, although he ignored it a mere second after, as it was of no importance to him. "What?" Makarov's voice now rang in their minds, shocked at this outrage. "He said that even though we stopped face, those guys aren't done yet. He told me to tell you to release the light, master." Happy gave his message to Makarov, who could be heard letting out a gasp. "The light? He can't possibly mean the lumen histoire," Makarov blurted out, which got everyone's attention, and Itachi's, as he remembered it was their guild's greatest secret, and what Ivan was after during the Grand Magic Games. Before anyone could question anything, they heard Warren screaming in pain. And then the sound of static drowning out his screams. "The Wizard Guild, Fairy Tail, I believe." A new chilling voice was heard and the static vanished. "Who are you, dirtbag?" Elfman was heard through the link. "Mardgeir, the Underworld King. But you don't need to remember that, because there is no tomorrow for any of you. Before you all perish, I would like to thank you for bringing our dearest demon of extinction back to us." What followed next was a long silence of confusion to some. Alegria. The very next moment the entire cube started to shake, and Mardgeir's voice faded, as a mass of some sort of flesh started to grow around them. Itachi tightened the hold around Mirajane, and spread his demonic black wings of darkness along with Kisame, Sasori and Kakuzu. They flew high enough to avoid the cursed flesh, but saw that the entire hideout was covered in this flesh. And heard screams of horror coming from people, both their own and soldiers from Tartaros. Mirajane looked down in horror, shedding tears at seeing what was happening to their friends. They also noticed that the cube started to change, as it grew tentacle-like legs, and it opened a massive jaw. The cube was alive. Itachi instantly looked to Kisame for answers. "What is this?" "It's Plutogrim, serving as a hideout for Tartaros, but also as an unescapable prison for the enemies of Tartaros," Kisame replied. Once it seemed to be over, Itachi and his fellow former Akatsuki members flew back down. Once they landed, Mira gasped in shock, seeing the bodies of various of their friends stuck inside this mass of flesh-like sculptures. "How horrible," Mira uttered as she saw the form of Master Makarov trapped within this flesh. "We have to help them." "How?" Itachi questioned, and Mira looked in horror, seeing Itachi's expression hadn't changed. He didn't seem sad, angry, he seemed completely emotionless about all this. How much of his emotions has the darkness taken? Mira thought and held onto Itachi tighter, while thinking to herself that they would find a way to fix this. "What's this? Seems 2 humans have escaped the Alegria curse." Mardgeir's voice was heard in their heads, and then they heard him chuckle. 2 lonely humans, one accompanied with 4 demonic presences, and one all alone in the underworld of Tartaros. Such bad luck you two have, I must say. 2. Mira questioned, meaning another one of their friends escaped the curse. Itachi, earlier you asked how we undo this curse. Well, from my knowledge one of the ways is to kill Marred Gear. Kisame informed his former partner and teammate. Very well. Itachi grabbed onto Mira as they flew through the corridor of the Tartaros Guild, hunting for Marred Gear. Wait, what about our friend? The one who also escaped the Alegria? We have to help. Mira protested, but Itachi held her tighter. Taking down Tartaros is top priority. And taking out Marred Gear will save everyone. Besides, whoever this person is, they are from Fairy Tail, they should be able to take care of themselves. Itachi's words shocked Mira even more, the coldness behind his words, the lack of emotions in his eyes. She was beyond worried about him, but she needed to save this person. Then let me go, I will only get in the way anyway, let me save this comrade of ours. Mira argued, to which Itachi sent her a small look, and stopped flying in case it did the others, and they landed onto the ground. You really are stubborn, Itachi uttered as he looked into Mira's deep blue eyes, that stared back at him intensely, showing she was upset with him. But the best way for you to help this person is to come with us, and kill Marred Gear. Then everyone will be free and he or she will have plenty of backup. Itachi let go of Mira. He turned around, and started walking. He didn't get a reply, nor did he hear footsteps following him. Itachi sighed and turned around only to be surprised at what he saw. Time had frozen. Itachi looked around to see that only he alone could move. Mira, Kisame, Sasori, Kakuzu all had frozen in place, unable to move. What is this? Itachi questioned as he scouted around to find out who was causing this. Welcome to Tartaros, a guild made of demons from my books. Itachi turned around and saw none other than Zeref. The black wizard smiled at him while looking at him from top to toe. Oh, I see. Using Hell's Core's demon seeds you managed to enter your partially transformed state. And I can see you have some control over it, well, minus losing all your emotions, or should I say, almost all of them. Zeref eyed Mira, to which Itachi stepped in front of her in a defensive manner. Don't even think about doing anything to her. Itachi gave a cold, murderous glare with killing intent leaking out. Zeref gave a small snort at this display of affection. Such behavior is not suited for the demon of extinction. How this young maiden managed to capture your heart is unbelievable. I wonder how your other half feels about her. Hate, for turning you soft, or love, same as you feel for her. Hard to say, love is a really confusing emotion sometimes. Zeref held up the medallion he usually carries around. I assume you didn't come here without any reason, why are you here? Itachi asked, going right up to Zeref's face. Both their eyes lacked any emotions as they stared into each other. I came here to see if Tartaros will be successful in reviving END, or if they will fully unlock E from within you. And I felt as if the time had come for me to explain this whole mess to you. Zeref said, obviously referring as to why Itachi was E, and the full story on how he was brought back to life. This was a subject Itachi had been curious about since day one, why he was brought back and how. He wanted to know. The desire of knowledge burnt like a wildfire in his mind. With only one more flame burning stronger, it wasn't the will to protect Mirajane nor his comrades. For some reason this urge was way stronger. He felt the urge to kill Zeref, to destroy him from existence. Talk. Itachi held the urge back as he wanted answers first. Zeref smiled, noticing the urge in Itachi's eyes. Marvelous, truly. Zeref gave a light chuckle at this discovery. I will have to start from the very beginning in that case. Before I became the Black Wizard Zeref. Zeref said as his eyes changed from black to red and his eyes were filled with evil and malice. I had a little brother once, like you. And very much like you, I loved him unconditionally, I would do anything for him. However, one day our hometown was attacked by a dragon, and my beloved younger brother and our parents died. I alone survived the attack. It didn't take long for me to join a wizard academy that worshipped the god of death, Anksarum. There I studied the wonders of magic, and became the greatest student there. However, unknown to my teachers and classmates, in secret I was working on a way to bring the dead back to life. Zeref declared, and his look of malice vanished and his eyes returned to black once more. His attitude and personality keeps changing, Itachi noticed as Zeref was telling his story. For years I wandered in loneliness, wanting to see my younger brother again. I came up with many ideas to bring him back, but the best one was the R system. I'm sure you are quite familiar with that one. Zeref said, to which Itachi gained a memory of the Tower of Heaven, and of Jalal and Urza. Keep going. was all Itachi said in response, his eyes flickering with only a mere spark of emotions at the thought of Erza. Because of my desire to learn how to bring the dead back to life, and studying the dark arts. The god of death punished me, placing a cure upon me, making me immortal, released death energy every time I valued life, and every time I rejected it I released less death energy. Zeref said as his own eyes flickered between black and red, every time it turned red a feeling of malice could be felt in the air. It also slowly twists my mind, every time I reject life. That is why I became feared. Zeref snickered for a moment as his eyes were red. I see, so that's why he keeps changing between darkness and madness. Itachi thought and kept his focus on Zeref, in case he would try anything. During my early years as the Black Wizard, I didn't really pay that much mind to the curse. I just tried to stay away from as many people as possible. I remained in what became my library of dark magic and arts. I studied every way known of revival. And I found something that might work, something drastic. A spell not made by humans, but by demons. Zeref declared as it seemed the subject Itachi wanted to hear about got closer. The spell required the use of demonic DNA, to create demon soldiers from corpses or living beings. Normally I would have needed to go to the underworld to get the sample. However, for once luck was on my side. The demons had planned an invasion on the human world. I managed to find the location their elite warriors would arrive from. It was there that I met them, the 13 elite soldiers of the Demon King. I challenged their leader, a being who far surpassed me in agnologia. Zeref declared, to which Itachi widened his eyes for a bit. Itachi didn't give a respond, he just remained silent while Zeref continued the story. With them heavily underestimating me, and me having prepared a little trap. I stalled their leader for a bit, until I managed to use a spell to take small samples of all their DNA. It wasn't easy, as I discovered another secret about demons. Zeref declared and slowly removed his robe, taking his arm out from the right sleeve, and revealed a deep scar on his torso. Only demons have the ability to harm an immortal, or perhaps even kill an immortal. Itachi managed to realize something without Zeref needing to continue. He didn't create the demons of the books of Zeref to destroy the world, but to end his own suffering. Is that why there are so many demons from your books? Couldn't make one with the same level of demonic power required to end your life? To this Zeref merely smiled. Actually, I did make 3 that had enough power to kill me. The rest couldn't, not even your friends over there could. Zeref looked over at Kisame and Sasori. EKH, ES, and EK, great creations, but they still lacked the power to end my life. Zeref then turned his gaze back onto Itachi. The 3 demons that can kill me are END, E, aka you, and Madara Uchiha. Then pray tell, why aren't you dead yet? Itachi asked the obvious question. I will get to the reason why you haven't yet later. As for the other 2, END hadn't fully matured yet before he was taken away. As for Madara, he simply meant this cursed life was my punishment. Under normal circumstances he would have killed me for sure, I don't doubt that. But what happened there wasn't exactly normal. You can ask him when you finally met him, might be sooner than you think. Zeref declared with a small smirk, to which Itachi frowned. Is he here? Itachi asked, to which Zeref shook his head. No, not yet, that is. Zeref replied, and the scene changed into someone standing on a hill watching over the city of Magnolia from a very far distance. The figure wore a cloak, the wind blew the hood off revealing long dark black spiky hair. I'm sure he is on his way though. Meanwhile, in the ravines further away from the town of Magnolia, walked 4 figures. Cobra, also known as Eric, Midnight, also known as Macbeth, Racer, also known as Sawyer, and Angel, also known as Serrano. Can't believe Hotai abandoned us and joined Jalal, Sawyer uttered, sounding outraged that their own comrade would abandon them like that. Is he following us? He did say he couldn't let us roam around free considering how unpredictable we are. Macbeth turned to look at Eric to see if he could hear anyone close to them. Yeah, that Meredy girl is watching us. Jalal, Altair and Richard are further away. Eric replied, his ear twitching, and his eyes looking in the direction of Meredy, who was standing up on a tall hill. She isn't trying to hide, just observe us. We can take her, before Jalal gets here, I mean. Sawyer suggested that they killed the girl and ran off. I wouldn't underestimate her if I were you, Sawyer. She was once a member of the 7 kin of Purgatory after all. She won't go down that easily. Macbeth turned down the idea, not seeming to have the desire to kill her. In fact, out of the 4 of them he was the one to really think about Jalal's offer the most. I think we actually should consider his offer, it's not like he will use us as puppets. Yeah, I know, I heard his thoughts after all, maybe we should. Eric agreed to Macbeth's statement. And I think Jalal proved we are no match for him, considering how easily he defeated Zero. Serrano further boosted up Macbeth's argument on the matter, to which Sawyer clicked his tongue, growing annoyed at the situation. Someone's coming. Eric's ears twitched as they all turned to the direction he was facing. Then it was like they were surrounded by an ocean of pure darkness, the air turned ice cold and they all froze on the spot, same with Meredy, who despite being further away could feel this presence. What is this? This power? Serrano uttered, sweating bullets while her entire being trembled in fear. I'm feeling sick, the hell is this? Sawyer uttered, also sweating bullets, his entire body trembling. He wanted to run far away. But he couldn't even move a muscle. They then heard footsteps, and saw a lone figure walking towards them. The members of the Oración Cease couldn't move a muscle as this figure walked closer and closer, it got harder for them to breathe. The figure was dressed in a black cloak, and underneath it pieces of red samurai armor could be seen. The hood was blown down and they saw his face. He was a man with long spiky black hair with bangs going over his right eye. But what really stood out to them was his eyes. They were red like the color of fresh blood, glowing like a sunset. They could see 3 black tomos in his eyes with a black dot in the center. It was the Sharingan. They could only stare as the figure was mere inches away from them. It was like death itself stood before them. They expected to be killed on the spot, although the man merely ignored them like they weren't worth his time, and walked past them. They tried to move and turn around, but they couldn't. Their bodies were frozen in fear. The further their distance grew, the less of the darkness remained. Once it was all gone, all 4 of them fell to their knees. And the effects of that man's sickening presence of power made the highly sensed Dragon Slayer Eric feel like he was going to vomit on the spot. Who the hell was that? Eric, Macbeth, Serrano, Sawyer. Meredy rushed down to them, with Jalal, Altair and Richard right behind her, them also having felt that man's presence. What happened? Jalal asked, helping Eric pick himself back up. I don't know, I have never felt something like that in my whole life. That guy, his power was terrifying. Eric uttered and looked at his comrades, all struck with shock and terror. Serrano looked like she was about to weep after that horrible sensation of darkness. That was no man, he was a monster. Macbeth uttered, looking at his trembling hands. That sensation of darkness, it made the likes of Zero seem like child's play. What did he look like? Jalal asked out of curiosity on this new powerful being. He looked like a man, but he felt like something more. He had long black spiky hair, with bangs going over his right eye. He wore a black cloak and had some sort of red armor underneath it. But his eyes, they were red like freshly spilled blood, and glowed like sunset. They had these black tomos in them. This triggered something in Altair, who quickly grabbed a hold of Macbeth and activated her Sharingan, making him flinch. Did it look like this? Altair asked while looking into the terrified eyes of Macbeth. Yes. What is that? Macbeth asked while looking into Altair's Sharingan eyes. It's him, Altair uttered, to which Jalal and Meredy widened their eyes, realizing what Altair was thinking about. It must be father, Altair uttered. To this Jalal narrowed his gaze, looking slightly worried. Madara Uchiha, Jalal uttered and looked at Eric for answers. Which way did he go? Jalal asked. That way. Eric pointed towards the distance and Jalal widened his eyes, knowing what was in that direction. Magnolia, don't tell me he is going to Fairy Tail. Jalal asked, growing worried for a certain redhead female knight, and of a man with the same eyes as Madara and Altair, who he had grown a form of camaraderie or even friendship with. Before Jalal could say anything else, Altair rushed in that direction, her eyes glowing with determination to get answers. And they all followed after her. Well, Sawyer was the only one to hesitate. Wait, we joining them now? Sawyer questioned, seeing as Macbeth, Eric and Serrano were following them. Sawyer, not wanting to be left behind, rubbed his head in frustration, remembering the sensation they got from Madara. Arg, this is crazy. Hey, wait up. Sawyer ran after them, not wanting to be left behind, and not wanting the only people he cared about to get killed by that Madara should they run into him again. Dang, when did I get this soft? Sawyer thought and grew a small smirk as he ran past his friends and easily caught up with them. The scene changed back to Zeref and Itachi. Itachi at this point had a blade of darkness directed at the Black Wizard's neck. Did you send him to kill us? Or help Tartaros? You actually think he takes orders from me? Adorable. Zeref mocked with a light chuckle. He is coming here, because of all the concentrated power, because of you. My guess he wants to see what you can do. Itachi frowned at the black wizard, pushing the blade of darkness closer up to his neck. Itachi retracted his blade and panted heavily, trying to resist the urge to kill Zeref. Back to my story. After this injury, I activated my trap, and sealed all 13 of them away forever. Now that I think back about it, perhaps I should have let the leader kill me. Zeref hummed a little as he put his robe back on. Oh well, after the battle, I took the DNA samples and started getting to work. I altered a few things about the spell, such as giving them a purpose in life, that being to kill me and return to me. And then, I had a way to create my very own demons, a way to bring my brother back to life. And how does this end up involving me? Itachi asked with a raised brow at the black wizard. I needed a test subject. Zeref replied, to which Itachi assumed they had gotten there. You see, my brother died very young, and I couldn't risk using this kind of magic on an infant body without knowing if it would work. There were many test subjects before you, of course, but they all failed. I went to try on adults by altering their body's age to that of a child, but it still failed. They were all too weak and lacked potential. I then thought, what if I try getting someone really strong from another world? Itachi paid closer attention as this was it. Like I told you on Tenro, getting to another world is easy as long as you know the right spell. Remember how I told you, there are 4 worlds, this one, Edelus, Element of Nations, and War World. Imagine the 4 to be connected like a square, and in the center of that square is a spiral that is the afterlife and connects us all. Yes, you said you used it after I undid the Edo Tensei to grab me, Sasori, and Kakuzu. Itachi thought back on the conversation he had with Zeref just before Acnology attacked. Well, that was true for your soul. Your body is a different story. Zeref declared with a tiny little smirk at Itachi. I took a trip to your world, and luckily I stumbled upon the aftermath of your big battle with your brother, Sasuke. I picked up your dead corpse right from under that masked man's nose, just after he took your eyes. Lucky for you I managed to restore them, and made them stronger than ever. And L managed to stop him from taking the Totsuka blade and the Yata mirror from your soul as well. Who knows what he would have used them for? Zeref shrugged his shoulder, clearly not showing any sign that he cared what happened to Itachi's world. Anyway, then I began experimenting upon your body. First, I altered your age to match the age that of my brother, and I changed your body back to that of a 4-year-old. And then I added the DNA sample of the leader of those elite demons to you, which created this. Zeref said as he pointed at the mass of darkness over Itachi's body. Then, your body started moving, it was alive. I did add something else which would become known as your fully transformed state, but I will get back to that in a bit. For now I will focus on the main issue with you. Zeref said, which confused Itachi a little. Did Zeref fail at something with him? You see, I only grabbed your body. And because of this it was without a soul. The moment I added the demonic power, it was as if your body developed a new soul. A wild savage beast that would be known as the demon of extinction, a beast just like a newborn wild animal, looked to me as its parent and although remained at my side, had no desire to kill me. Zeref explained, to which Itachi raised his brow at how a wild, emotionless, beast resisted the urge to kill. So, what, like most wild newborn animals viewed you, the first thing he saw as his parent. And therefore, grew attached to you. And because of that, he refused the urge to kill you. Itachi questioned, as it still seemed unbelievable to him. Well, no, but it was because of something else. You see, like I said, he was my first creation. Back then I didn't know how to add the urge to kill me, I didn't think I actually needed it. The fact that he grew attached to me, only ensured that he would never try and kill me. I thought I had failed with without your soul in him, a soul that wouldn't mind killing for the greater good regardless of who it is. Father, mother, lover, someone like you would have killed me on the spot. Zeref stated, to which Itachi couldn't help but agree. If he had heard of what Zeref wished for, to die and end his eternal suffering, Itachi would most likely have complied with the request. Of course, as we see now, I did find your soul eventually. It took a few years, since time in my world and your world flows differently. Yours moves slower than mine, what really only took a few months, took a few years for me. I mean, if you remember the events of Edelus, after you came back having set everyone free, for them it was like nothing had happened. But for you days had passed. Zeref pointed out, and it was true. The moment Itachi and the others got back, it was like nothing had changed for their friends, like not even a second had passed. He just thought it was a result of them being trapped in the giant lacrima. The day you and Sasuke undid the Edo Tensei, that day I would find your soul, and get Sasori and Kakuzu as well. You can thank Kisame, by the way, he was kind enough to come with the suggestion to look for your soul in the afterlife. Zeref said, to which Itachi peeked from the corner of his eye to the frozen shark man. But, things happened in the span of the time it took for me to get your soul, you know. Since it worked, I went to work on my brother. And with our connection by blood, finding his soul was rather easy. I then finally managed to resurrect him. My precious little brother was back in my life. But not without cost. He was a demon now, looked like a human, but he was still a demon. And that was the birth of END. Zeref revealed that his very own younger brother was the demon END, the leader of Tartaros. Why wasn't Itachi surprised by this? Anyway, sorry, I got a little off topic here. Anyway, that was only the beginning of the source of E's power. Zeref's eyes turned red again, and malice leaked out from him as he grew a sinister smirk. Sweat ran down his head as he held his right hand to his temple, struggling inside with his own inner conflict. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. The next part will be out soon.